Let us discuss a tale of two archetypes. Whether we believe the Buddha was real or whether we believe the Buddha was purely mythical, either way, he serves as an archetype. You see, most complex life forms on this planet, most complex animal life forms on this planet have evolved to think symbolically. Therefore, archetypes are rather important to us. But the Buddha is not the only ancient archetype. And according to Buddhist history or Buddhist mythology, the Buddha had a rather foolish cousin named Devadatta, as we see right here. And of course, the Buddha had many names. He was known in Pali as Gautama and in Sanskrit as Shakyamuni. But we see a tremendous parallel between Buddhism and Taoism, which at this point was already about 100 years old. And we see a parallel between what Lao Tzu referred to as yang and what Buddhism referred to as the attributes of Devadatta. They're the same attributes. The attributes of being rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. I would describe this as being Yang Buddhism or institutional Buddhism, which I find to be highly toxic. On the other hand, we have the attributes attributed that Lao Tzu attributed to yin, and that we, over the many centuries, have attributed to the Buddha. We have the flexibility. We have a system that helps us to indulge our tendencies to be flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, and kind. Some people call this Yin Buddhism or Proto-Buddhism. This, of course, reminds me of Sturgeon's Law, which tells us that 90% of everything sucks, but not in the fun, tingly way. 90% of everything, including humans, including meditation teachers. I found this to be profoundly inconvenient, yet something I saw consistently in my life. I have an unfair advantage over most people. I'm extremely neurodivergent, which means I have sharp pattern recognition skills. Doesn't make me smarter, just means that's one of my talents is pattern recognition. So when I was a member of a Christian cult, I saw an institution that was conditioning people to indulge their tendencies to be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. And after I escaped that, and the only institution I could find that was teaching Tantric Buddhism happened to be a cult, and I got involved with them. And they too were training me and training my peers, and even the teachers themselves acted like they were rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. One time, the head Lama came to town. I was looking forward to meeting him. They said I couldn't meet him because I was poor, because I didn't have enough money to pay a fee, which were definitely cruel. Would you not agree? So regardless of culture, regardless of country, even regardless of gender, we can be conditioned to become slaves of our dopamine-oriented survival system, which is wired to make us rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. The liberation that is offered to us, whether philosophically or spiritually or religiously, or is liberation not from the presence of our survival-oriented reward system, but it's tyranny to change its role from being our boss to simply being one of many tools in our neurological tool shed. That is why I recommend that the ultimate test of a teacher in the teaching is not their pedigree or their bona fides. What the test of a teacher are the results that the application of his instructions has in our life. If our enthusiastic application of a teacher's instructions makes us rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel, it's time to look for a better teacher, one who can help us to become the flexible, loving, rational, laid-back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative kind of person that we were born to be. For although we were born to have both a dopamine-oriented reward system and an oxytocin-oriented reward system, although we were born to have both an amygdala as well as an anterior cingulate gyrus, we were not born to have our survival-oriented reward system control us like a puppet on a string. This is the Dzogchen Sunday Lama Jigme Gyatso of the Buddha Joy Meditation School. For multiple decades, I spent about 8 hours a day, almost every day, studying, practicing, mastering, and reverse engineering the teachings and techniques of each school of meditation so that you would not have to. It is Ahsoka Tano early Thursday morning. Let us come. Let us meditate like a Jedi. Let's begin this morning's practice with by gently inviting our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce at the crown of our head. There are many strategies to do this. The one I recommend the most is to use the Pasati Mudra, which could be translated as a meditation gesture. It's very simple to do. All we do is use the tip of our left index finger. Actually, I'm going to do the old switcheroo for, wait a minute for that. So we use the tip of our left index finger to support the lower knuckle of our right index finger, palms up in our lap. Now, there are many fringe benefits to playing with this gesture, in addition to the energetic benefits. Number one, this is profoundly useful the next time we feel ourselves on the precipice of a meltdown. No, habitual meltdowns are not a psychological problem. They are a psychological symptom of a physiological problem. Meltdown, what we call meltdown, really served us well in ancient days when we were imperiled. Sadly, in late-stage capitalism, society very much seems to be structured to keep us habitually in an imperiled and easily manipulated state. Third, this gesture is profoundly useful at night when we lie down to go to sleep. This can help us to enter sleep easier. And it can help us to enter literal sleep. And also it can help us to enter the figurative sleep of death when later on it inevitably comes for us. And finally, it is a profoundly useful tool in the arsenal that I like to describe as Bengali crease counting. In Bengali crease counting, we play with sets of 13 repetitions that break down into two subcategories: a single repetition and a dozen repetitions. But repetition of what? You could understandably ask. A repetition of what I like to call contemplative notation. We begin with mindfulness notation each time we passively notice air enter our nostrils, we silently and mentally recite the verb watch. And meditations notation, wherein each time we passively notice air exit our nostrils, we silently and mentally recite the verb rest. By playing with these two verbs, we're not coercing our autonomic nervous system to do our bidding. Au contraire, our autonomic nervous system is always watching and resting in the background, like an app, like a forgotten application on our smartphone. Then why do we play with the two verbs watch and rest? To remind our will, to remind our intention, to remind our, when you use the fancy term, volition. To take a relaxing break from the exhausting habit of actively competing against our own autonomic nervous system. So silently and mentally reciting watch during our inhalation and silently and mentally reciting rest during our exhalation constitutes one repetition. So, assuming this gesture, let us count our first single repetition. How are we going to keep track of the dozen repetitions that follow? Simple. Let us draw our attention. Now, this is where I'm going to adjust the camera in an attempt to look like Kilroy. Let's adjust the camera and bring our attention to our right hand. With every repetition, with each inhalation, wherein we silently and mentally recite the verb watch, let us advance our right thumb, beginning with the lower set of creases of our right index finger and concluding with the upper set of creases of our right. Let me try that again. Beginning with the lower set of creases of our right little finger and concluding with the upper set of creases of our right index finger. So together as a team, let us practice right now. Quick tip, if you find yourself habitually denying others the benefit of the doubt and accosting them with railing accusations in an attempt to coerce them into doing what you think is right, then you are under the thrall of yang. Whether you know it or not, you've been conditioned to habitually be rigid, fearful, superstitious, controlling, elitist, cryptic, competitive, and cruel. If you've seen that run rough shackle over your relationships, then it's time to come to yin. I assure you, being flexible, loving, rational, laid back, egalitarian, lucid, cooperative, kind will do wonders for all your relationships. Fabulous. We have counted one repetition. We've counted a single repetition. Or should I say we've counted one set, one repetition, and 12 repetitions. Doing so took just a little bit more than a minute. How are we going to keep track of additional sets of our single and dozen repetitions? Simple. Let us direct our attention to our left hand and touch the tip of our left thumb to the lower set of creases of this little finger. And now we count our next single repetition. In preparation for our next dozen repetitions, we return to our right hand. Many people say this is a pain in the ass. I don't like it. I'll just set a timer on my smartphone. That's great. However, doing so is not useful in a time where we see a rise of fascism, where cranky men in polyester armed to the teeth can rob us of our smartphones, where the president has already threatened to cut off the power in states that have voted blue. In which case our smartphones will be beautiful paperweights. Whether we time our meditation with an incense stick or a candle, it's still been my experience that Bengali crease counting, while requiring a learning curve, is the most psychologically satisfying method to use. And here's the trick. Repetition is the mother of skill. Come to these live streams once every 12 hours, and within a week or two, this entire system you could master. And of course, now we return to our left hand and advance our thumb in preparation for our next single repetition. And now that you have the basic idea of how to count to multiple sets of multiple repetitions, let us return our hands palms up in our lap, which I'm sure you will agree is much more ergonomically sound. Since we're playing with the meditation gesture, let's take a deeper look at what meditation is. We'll begin with what meditation is not. Meditation is not the reliance upon our dorsolateral prefrontal cortex to actively analyze. Doing so triggers our amygdala, the seat of both anxiety and aggression, and nobody wants that. Instead, every time we inhale, let's reverse this. Every time we exhale, let's take advantage of the fact that with each exhalation, we are already wired to automatically access both the tippy top and the very bottom of our spinal cord. These two regions, working as a team, function as the core of our parasympathetic nervous system, one half of our autonomic nervous system. It helps us to physically relax and mentally release during each exhalation to such a degree that which we watched during our previous inhalation could fleetingly feel less stressful, less permanent, less defining, and as non-graspable as a vast, empty void. It would seem that a simile is only as effective as it is relatable. Therefore, we must ask the question, what? What is a real-world example of a non-graspable vast empty void? How about the illusion of the infinite azure sky on a bright and beautiful cloudless morn, which although could look tantalizing to the eye, could feel non-graspable to the hand? And so whether we are discussing emptiness or no self, both are simply figures of speech to describe the fleeting and latent experience hidden within each exhalation. Therefore, we do not have to force ourselves to have great revelations. We do not have to commit ourselves to pseudo-spiritual double talk. We do not have to rely on visualizations. We can simply cooperate with our autonomic nervous system in a manner vulnerable, passive, visceral, random, and fleeting. And as a delicious fringe benefit, not only is the anxiety and aggression of our amygdala calmed, we wind up gently stimulating our anterior cingulate gyrus, which functions as the hub of our mirror neurons, the seat of empathy. So those who would rely on contemplations or riddles or koans or visualizations are traversing the active path of yang, of devadatta. Those who are traversing this easy path of exhaling and relaxing and cooperating are traversing the easy path of yin, of Gautama, of the Buddha, of Lao Tzu, of the Christ, and the like. So as I've mentioned, I'm highly neurodivergent. At birth, I presented with symptoms of fetal alcohol syndrome. And in my childhood as well as adulthood, I also presented with symptoms of high support needs of ADHD and autism. Having both meant that my body had become wired for frequent meltdowns. This path of yin, this path of cooperating with my autonomic nervous system, has been extremely powerful in liberating me from the tyranny of that comorbidity known as the meltdown. And I would be rather remiss if I did not share this free technology with you as well. For although you might not be brain damaged, you are also subject to the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, and would welcome freedom from the tyranny of our cranky tendencies. Let us now shift gears. And now prepare to gently invite our real or imagined subtle energies to coalesce in our chest. We will do this by working with the Sati Mudra, also known as the mindfulness gesture. It is as simple as using the tip of, let's adjust this camera. Let's see, I want to move this way now. It is as simple as using the tip of our left middle finger to support the lower knuckle of our right middle finger, palms up in our lap. This time we'll be counting sets of single and dozen repetitions of feel and rest. Every time we passively notice our chest swell with breath, we could silently and mentally recite the verb feel. And every time we passively notice our chest subtly sink as gently we exhale, we can silently and mentally recite the verb rest. The mindfulness gesture or Sati Mudra represents our first repetition of our first single repetition. And just like before, we're going to keep track of our dozen repetitions on our right hand. We now keep track of our next single repetition by retouching the tip of our left thumb to the lower set of creases of our left little finger. And we count our next dozen repetitions of feel rest on our right hand. We now keep track of our next single repetition by advancing our left thumb. And now that you get the basic idea of how we can count single repetitions and dozen repetitions, let us return our hands palms up to our lap. Since we are playing with our sati, our mindfulness gesture, let us take a deeper look at mindfulness. Every time we inhale, whether we know it or not, we have evolved to automatically access the middle bit of our spinal cord, which functions as the core of our sympathetic nervous system. It has evolved to help us to vulnerably, passively, viscerally, randomly, and fleetingly, and thus sustainably notice all mind's antics of perception, emotion, intention, cognition, recollection, and imagination. All of them, from the external to the internal, from the physical to the mental, from the pleasurable to the painful, from the interesting to the boring, from the convenient to the arduous, from the glorious to the grotesque. Remember, the moment you have a specific question about the philosophies or techniques that support meditation, do not hesitate to type your question in great detail in the chat window. For I do check for questions periodically. Now, if you are watching a replay of this video, simply type your questions in the comment window, and I will do my best to get back to you in a future video. And then send you the link wherewith you can watch that video. Allow me to remind you that the idea of stopping our thoughts or perceptions, emotions, intentions, memories, and imaginings comes from the path of yang, the path of being controlling. The path of yin lets the brain and the body do what it do. It simply says, passively notice and passively relax as you watch your brain and body do what they do. It is as if we have taken our seat in the theater with full understanding that we are not the producer, nor the director, nor the playwright. We are simply an individual in the audience enjoying the antics of the thespians upon the stage. You have taken your first step into a much larger world. If you feel that I have earned it, you could give this live stream a thumbs up. You could even help support this channel. For Meditate Like a Jedi is made possible thanks to the generosity of viewers just like you. In approximately 9.5 hours, I would very much like to return to lead today's desk practice of Meditate Like a Jedi. And if you are as geeky as me, may the Force be with you always.